I cannot tell you.
Oh, okay. Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you.
Oh, okay.
So I will start webinar.
Okay.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. We are very pleased to welcome you at this World Forum on Underground Urban Transportation, organized by the International Tunneling and Underground Space Association on the frame of a second United Nations Global Sustainable Transport Conference, which is being held in Beijing. We have organized this workshop to show and demonstrate that tunnels, part of transport systems, are beneficial to the sustainable development, and notably to some of the sustainable development goals set up by the United Nations, and notably the goal number 3, which is the way to better ensure healthy life and promote well-being for all at all ages. And we will demonstrate that with a presentation on the importance of metro systems that takes off cars and bring the pollution down. On the goal number 9, which is build resilient infrastructure. And for instance, I would say that the example of smart tunnel in Kuala Lumpur is one of this magnificent example. And goal number 11, which makes cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And for instance, the different projects on roads like in USA and in Madrid are of that. And of course, as metro systems and as hub and railway, the development in China is of something very interesting. So just before we go, I just wanted to share with you a text, a small text from a French academician, which the title is about life and cities. Once upon a time was a life, once upon a time there were cities. The two stories mix because almost all we live now in the cities. Then the lives fit together, or lives to us in the life of the cities. No comparison is more relevant. Every city is a body, a living body. That is a body that moves, that never stops, like life. A body that grows up or gets older, a body that is only changes and metamorphoses, a body that is constantly being built and deconstructed to build itself again. And what makes a body or city stand up? Infrastructure, or if you prefer, a skeleton. What allows a city or a body to live? Networks, most of them buried. Open a body, open the floor of a city, you will first see pipes. And do you know what the cells of which we are made are making first? Energy. Our cities only come alive with the energy they are offering, old, cold, lights, electricities, and our cities are hungry just like we are, and just like us, they need to be fed, and not just material foods. So it's a good example. It's a French academician, a literature that sees that the cities and in the cities, what is needed is underground infrastructure. So now we'll start with the first presentation. The first presentation will be given by Professor Jingxiu Yan, ITA President. Please, Jenny.
Okay, thank you, Olivier. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to World Forum on Underground Urban Transportation, a side event of the second UN Global Sustainable Transport Conference. I think this is an ideal opportunity for me to share with you my view regarding urban underground transportation for sustainable cities. So I'm going to talk about what's ITA and the challenges of big cities, urban underground transport solutions, roles of metro system in sustainable cities, the way forward. So what is ITA? ITA is an organization, global organization that supports the development of tunnels and underground space through knowledge sharing, technical advancement, and ethical business practice. It was founded in 1974, and it's a non-profit and non-governmental organization. It has 78 member nations, and in 1987, ITA as NGO achieved a special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. ITA has actively participated in or organized UN activities. So ITA has 4+1 committees, including ITA committees on new technologies, on underground space, on education and training, on operation safety of underground facilities, as well as young tunnel member group. ITA has 15 active working groups, which are now working on dozens of important tasks with engineers from its member nations. Annual General Assembly is the most important meeting for ITA member nations to get together and to make major decisions of the organization. World Tunnel Congress is the annual event to exchange knowledge and experience. Since it was founded in 1974, ITA has organized a World Tunnel Congress each year. The coming 3 WTC events will be held in Copenhagen, Denmark, 2022, Athens, Greece, 2023, and Shenzhen, China, 2024. ITA has successfully organized 6 ITA Awards events, and the 7th edition will be held in November this year virtually due to the pandemic. The purpose of ITA Awards is to recognize and reward outstanding projects and new technologies worldwide. Training and education is one of our key tasks. We organize different training courses, and at the same time, we work together with universities. ITA issues new publications each year, including guidelines, reports, which promote knowledge sharing and technical advancement. So ITA's goal is sharing knowledge and promoting technical advancement and ethical business practice worldwide. So we have organized 46 World Tenor Congresses and numerous seminars and workshops. We promote new technologies by ITA awards, guidelines, and reports from working groups and committees. We have organized 81 sessions of training courses in 28 countries, and we have provided master degree scholarship for students in developing countries. We address the healthy development of the industry and fair risk sharing. Regarding urban underground transport solutions, as you know, big cities are now facing challenges such as land shortage, pollution, traffic congestion, parking difficulties, etc. And the use of underground space provides solutions to these challenges, including underground transport facilities, underground public facilities, and other underground facilities. Urban underground transport solutions include railway tunnels, road tunnels, metro lines, integrated traffic hubs, multifunctional traffic tunnels. And that means the tunnel is multifunctional, such as for both road and metro, for road and flooding relief, like a smart tunnel in Malaysia, etc. I would like to share with you a typical urban railway tunnel projects. It's an intercity railway linking Changsha, the capital city of Hunan province, and Xiangtan and Zhuzhou, another two cities. So in Changsha city, the capital of Hunan province, the railway is mainly underground. Yeah, consisting of two long tunnels. One is nearly 14 kilometers long with 5 stations, and the other one is more than 12 kilometers long with 4 stations. And the three of these stations are transfer stations to metro lines. So the underground solution has avoided the division of the city into 2 halves by this railway and reduced noise and vibration on ground. Alaskan Rail Tunnel in the US and Madrid M13 motorway in Spain. I think they are typical urban road tunnel projects, not only improving traffic conditions in the city center, but also greatly improve the environment on the ground. Randy from US and Petro from Spain will share with you the details of these 2 very interesting projects later. And many integrated traffic hubs have been built worldwide. Shenzhen Fujian Station is one of these comprehensive transport hubs. It's located in the central area of Shenzhen city with the high-speed railway station as the core. It integrates with 3 metro lines, Line 2, Line 3, and Line 11, and an underground pedestrian we call the city living room, the bus station, the taxi station, and the supporting commercial facilities. So it's an underground 3-story structure, a very big one. And Dr. Zhou Mingliang from China will share with you a similar project in Shenzhen later. In terms of role of metro system in sustainable cities, around 170 cities in 55 countries have urban rail transit lines. Currently, around 30 countries are building or extending their lines. Some countries are building several lines in several cities at the same time. Intensive construction is ongoing in Australia, Canada, China, France, India, Italy, etc. And one of the major metro projects ongoing is Grand Paris. There are 4 lines, 200 kilometers, and 68 new stations. China has built a lot of urban rail transit lines over the past decades. So by the end of 2020, 7,655 kilometers were built in 45 cities, of which 84% are underground. So this slide shows the different kinds of urban rail transit system in operation in China. So you can see the majority, the 48% are metro underground. This slide shows the operating mileage of metro lines in each city in China. Shanghai, Beijing, Chengdu, Hangzhou are the top cities with the longest operating mileage of metro lines. Shanghai reaches almost 800 kilometers, Beijing more than 700 kilometers, Chengdu and Guangzhou more than 500 kilometers. Urban rail transit system has been playing critical roles in the urban transportation in big cities in China. That's why many big cities in China are now building intensively urban rail transit systems. And it's very interesting that shared bikes are playing an important role in the last 1 kilometer of metro connections. So you just scan it with your mobile phone and you can ride it to wherever you like. It's very convenient and very green. The most popular and efficient use of underground space for big cities, I think, is metro systems, which improve urban transport greatly. More metro systems have become the backbone of urban transport in many big cities. It has a large transport capacity. It's a fast, punctual, safe. It's environmentally friendly. It contributes to sustainable and resilient cities. Metro systems contribute to several UN SDGs, as Olivia mentioned at the beginning, include number 3, number 7, number 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13. And it contributes to building inclusive and sustainable cities. The way forward, I think it's important to integrate deeply urban underground transportation with urban developments. Underground transportation provides a solution to urban challenges, but it needs to be integrated with other modes of transport on the ground to form a cohesive transport system. And it is also important that it's not just about solving urban mobility problems, but also about the economic and social development of cities, and needs to be deeply integrated with urban development. Not only land on ground level, but also underground space is very limited and needs to be used very efficiently. So how can we use underground space more efficiently? I think we may use a single tunnel instead of twin tunnels. We may use 2 or even 3 levels in a tunnel instead of 1 level. We may use precise tunnel shapes to avoid wasting space. We may use a multifunctional tunnel to increase underground space utilization, etc. Yeah, like the different projects like Smart Tunnel and other projects. So we can use underground space more efficiently. Urban underground transportation provides environmentally friendly solutions to cities. But at the same time, construction methods of such projects should be also environmentally friendly, and further countermeasures should be taken, such as less disturbance to the environment, less noise, less vibration, and less dust, and the protection of underground, and treatment and use of excavating spoil, and use of clean energy for both construction and operation, etc. I'm convinced that urban underground transportation will play an increasingly important role in sustainable cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny.
Thank you.
We will have a panel discussion afterwards, so feel free to ask questions in the Q&A, and we will integrate them during the panel discussion. So now we go to USA, and Randy Essex, ITA Vice President, will present the Alaskan Way Viaduct replacement by a tunnel in Seattle. Please, Randy, you have to, yes. That's it.
Can you see my screen? Thank you very much, Wolf.
It's perfect.
Good morning from North America. It is my pleasure and honor to present a remarkable project developed and carried forward by Washington State DOT. It's 5 o'clock in the morning their time. They were kind enough to allow me to give this presentation, which I've worked on since 2006. But the Alaskan Way Viaduct replacement tunnel, I think, captures three fundamental elements that have been discussed just earlier here: resilience, innovation, and most certainly urban transformation. Seattle is the home to many firsts. Big airplanes, a couple of companies you might have heard of, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, maybe even a beverage company you've heard of, all hosted and based in Seattle. We're also the home to the world's largest soft ground tunnel, Mount Baker Ridge Tunnel, the largest SEM excavations ever carried out in North and South America at the Beacon Hill Transit Station. And this project involved, at the time, the world's largest tunnel boring machine. But the story really begins in 1989 in Oakland, California, during the Loma Prieta earthquake, a Richter of 6.9. It was a terrible issue. I was living in the Oakland Hills at the time. The World Series baseball was going on, and thankfully Oakland was playing San Francisco across the bay, and many people were already home from work watching the baseball when the earthquake struck at about 5:30 in the evening. This used to be a double-decker freeway. It collapsed. The Cypress freeway collapsed, crushing a number of vehicles, causing a lot of damage. Flying buttress supports failed terribly, came crashing down and pancaked. That's the upper deck sitting on the lower deck. It was egregious. It was somber. And as I say, I lived up in the Oakland Hills and we rode the earthquake, my wife and son and I. And that next morning I saw the aftermath firsthand, and it was devastating. Remarkably, only 63 people lost their lives because the baseball was going on at the time. Well, there were two double-deck viaducts that were engineered and built in the 1950s. One was the Cypress Freeway Viaduct that I've just described in Oakland, California. The other was the Alaskan Way Viaduct in Seattle, Washington. They may have shared ideas in design, but what they also shared was a similar deficiency: upper columns and connections that were unable to resist severe lateral deformations in the earthquake magnitudes that struck California and then ultimately struck downtown Seattle. Well, this is a picture of Seattle's central waterfront. Since the 1900s, traffic relief has been a problem in the congested area. After decades of design and debate going back and forth, a solution was decided upon: two grade separated or elevated highways, one that would pass along an interstate route, Interstate 5, farther inland, and the other, Alaskan Way Viaduct, would carry State Road 99 along the waterfront. Both projects were a couplet. They were intended to provide traffic from south to north and north to south without encumbering the city streets, and they were both built in the 50s. Well, Seattle got their Loma Prieta in 2001. It was called the Nisqually earthquake. It was a 6.8, not a 6.9, but devastating nonetheless. A subduction zone earthquake. It damaged viaduct columns and connections. It caused the settlement of some of the foundations of the viaduct. They discovered voids in the 1930s seawall that was securing the waterfront area. They determined the seawall was susceptible to liquefaction and settlement in any subsequent event. Emergency repairs were carried out immediately to strengthen these supports. I call it the reframing of the expression full metal jacket to provide steel reinforcement so that if aftershocks or subsequent earthquakes were to occur, what beset the Cypress Freeway in Oakland would not repeat itself in downtown Seattle. Well, the timeline of this project was after the Nisqually earthquake. There was lots of debate, lots of discussion, lots of interchange with the public about what to do. Do we repair? Do we replace? Do we bore a tunnel? Some even felt no build was an acceptable solution. Well, thankfully, the governor of Washington State in 2009 declared no more study. We need to move ahead. We're going to select the tunnel option and it's going to go forward. From 2006 to 2010, I was part of a team that prepared RFPs and issued design, build, delivery. I'll tell you that a key member of our team was a veteran from the Smart Tunnel project in Kuala Lumpur. So we brought a lot of lessons learned from the project that you'll hear about later on to this project. So carrying lessons learned forward is a very important aspect of our business. And this was critical here because no one had ever built a tunnel like Smart, and no one had ever built a tunnel like Alaskan Way Viaduct Replacement Tunnel. Well, in 2010, Seattle Tunnel Partners contractor was selected, a joint venture of two contractors I'll describe later. They selected Hitachi Zocean to build an earth pressure balance machine of a dimension never seen before, upwards of 2 meters larger diameter than the largest machine that had been ever built before in Shanghai, 30% more face area. It's not just diameter, it's face area. It has to do with torque, balance of the cutter, had a lot of technical issues had to be overcome. And they were definitely in a new space and they needed innovation every step of the way. The machine was termed Big Bertha after a former mayor in Seattle. In 2013, it began mining near the Seattle sports stadiums on the south and headed north to Seattle's Space Needle. April 17, the TBM mined into a receiving pit, completing its drive. In 2019, the viaduct closed to realign the highway configuration so that they could connect into the new tunnel portals just constructed. In 2019, the tunnel was open to vehicles. At that time, the viaduct was removed, and I'll show you pictures of the dramatic transformation of the waterfront. And then tolling began in November 2019. Some tunnel facts: 3.2 kilometer drive, a double deck tunnel. This is much larger than Smart. Smart accommodates cars only. This is the first bored TBM tunnel to accommodate double deck truck traffic, thus the need for the much larger diameter. There's a view of the alignment and plan at the south cut and cover heading northward to the Space Needle. It was mined through glacial soils up to 67 meters of coverage, 5.3 bars of hydrostatic pressure. And for those highway engineers, here are some elements of details of the configuration, the lane width, the shoulders, the clearances, the grades, etc. The viaduct was able to accommodate at its maximum about 115,000 cars per day. This double deck tunnel came close. It has a capacity of 85,000 cars per day. Manufacturing the largest TBM in the world was no small task. It was manufactured and assembled in the port of Osaka, Japan, where they had some of the strongest lifting cranes in the world to help assemble the massive components. That's a screw conveyor. That's what a screw conveyor on a 17-meter machine looks like, with hardened steel. Here they are assembling pieces, and they're erecting at the docks for the first time. There's the screw conveyor going in and the rear shield. And finally, Big Bertha is ready to bore, but this is in Osaka, Japan. The project is in Seattle. So the TBM was disassembled, shipped in various pieces on the world's largest cargo ships, and brought to Seattle, where it was reassembled on site. You can see where the viaduct was removed to provide space for a launching pit. The TBM began its drive directly under the viaduct that would be removed upon completion of the tunnel construction. Well, here they're preparing the site. Here's the launch pit or the launching slot. Here they're bringing pieces of the TBM in from the port. There's the trailing gear assembly. The cutter head is being offloaded. And then they reassembled in a pit where those blue cranes are shown in the photograph. Here's the cutter head being lowered into the pit. Here's the TBM and its trailing gear taking shape. The public is a very important element of engaging the public. Seattle is only the 20th largest city in the US, but it's a very community-driven environment, a lot of engagement, a lot of votes, a lot of participation on behalf of the public, even to the point of them being able to access the top of the TBM for children and members to write good wishes on the machine upon its launch. And here's the slot trench, and you can see how close it is to the port. And finally, TBM mining begins in 2013. So here's some photographs of some of the tunnel construction. What does a 17.5-meter opening look like? Here's the south portal. There were 2 erector arms like this to install the precast concrete segments. They could operate concurrently, independently of one another. There's the bored tunnel completed before the inner workings and fixations are installed, the walls, the supports to accommodate double-decker emergency egress passages in the sidewall openings. They're completing the upper deck lanes, and this is a photograph of the completed lower deck lanes just prior to opening for operation. Now I'd like to talk about the transformation of Seattle's waterfront. I've told Olivier that this project turned a rusting 75-year-old host to a double-decker freeway into Paris's Champs-Élysées. And I don't think it's an exaggeration. This is a photograph of the images with the viaduct in place. And here it is gone. This is a photograph looking south to some of the bridges along the waterfront of what the double-decker viaduct and one other elevated highway looked like. And this is what it will look like in the near future. It has become a walking esplanade with access to the water, an opportunity for families and children to play and see the water, for people to view the Puget Sound from downtown and vice versa. That is quite an urban transformation. It may be unmatched, I don't know, but we find it in the tunneling business. Once we do something unique, it becomes a precedent for others to follow. SMART was a precedent for engineering this project. There are many precedents. The Channel Tunnel was a precedent for subaqueous drive. I believe that this will be a precedent for urban renewal, leveraging the benefits of underground space and underground tunnel operation to transport people and goods and services. On the left is what the viaduct looked like looking north. This is what the portal accesses into the tunnel look like now. This is what it looked like viewed from one of the city streets with the viaduct. And a month and a half later, the viaduct was gone and the viewscape is improved. Well, landscape architects were engaged and the competition was involved. Again, a lot of public engagement to talk about how they could modify this newly acquired acreage and turn it into living space and communal space for the public to enjoy. We've solved the issue of providing resilient, sustainable transportation for people going through and under the city. Now, what about people who are habitating in the city, who are working here, who are living here? And so these images are eventually going to be followed with real life construction to enhance the experience along the waterfront, the access to the harbor, the access to new recreational facilities looking west to Puget Sound, all giving rise because of one large cylindrical opening underground. Well, I'd like to offer some acknowledgements. Certainly the Washington State Department of Transportation showed tremendous verve and foresight and forbearance to start on this path and continue despite a number of obstacles during its development. The Washington State DOT management and engineering consultant team include McDonald, WSP, who was known as Parsons Brinkerhoff at the time, Shannon and Wilson, HDR, Enviro Issues. On the contractor side, the design build contractor was a joint venture of Dragados USA and Tudor Perini, with its designers HNTB, Intesa, and Hart Krauser. And then there were a number of other contractors, Atkinson, Kiewit, and Skanska, who also supported other elements of modification of the viaduct to facilitate construction of the tunnel and final reparations to complete the works. In closing, I'd like to also note that a lot of the key innovations and knowledge gained from this project were captured in the Alan Muirwood lecture of 2018 presented by Professor Ed Cording, who's a professor emeritus civil engineering at University of California. The title of Dr. Cording's report here is Monitoring and Controlling Ground Behavior at the Source, Recent Applications in Pressurized Tunneling. The diameter of this tunnel was such that the annular void was equivalent to the mass created by a 6-meter diameter TBM. That's how much void space had to be controlled. This and many other aspects gave rise to innovations in how to control ground when we're excavating in very, very large scales. In closing, the Alaskan Way Viaduct Replacement Tunnel is truly an element of resilience. We now have a bored tunnel that will withstand much greater than a 6.8 earthquake. Innovation to create the largest tunnel boring machines ever attempted in the world, to create the largest highway tunnel of its kind. An urban transformation to turn a rusting double-deck viaduct that's reaching 75 years of age into the Champs-Élysées. And I thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Randy. We are now going to have, I would say, quite a similar urban transformation, but this one in Madrid with a construction of the M30.
Can you see my screen? Or
No, we see your computer.
Oh,
totally.
okay. Sorry about it. Hold on. You seen it now? Now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry for the delay, for the inconvenience. Well, thank you, Olivier. Good morning from Madrid. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Well, first, I would like to thank the ITA for the kind invitation to participate in this World Urban Transport Forum in the framework of the Sustainable Transport Conference organized by the United Nations in Beijing. In this presentation, I will try to explain a project which is already known sometimes because it takes about nearly 20 years from its beginning, but which is a good example of a case study of how it is possible to improve transport and at the same time the recovery of the surface for leisure use with the smart use of the underground space. The M30 is the main ring road around Madrid, which is called Almendra Central because its shape. And in the early of the century, the M30 ring road and especially the southern, generated intense traffic congestion, and that was extended to the eastern part of the city. And at the same time, the banks of the Manzanares River has become very degraded as a result of the increasing of the traffic. That ring road started the idea in the 1929, and its construction was completed, the initial at the end of the 17th, closer the final rings in the 1990s. So the Manzanares River are the large green areas at the west, especially at the east, are the main feature of the layout. You can see here some images how the river banks appears at that age. The Madrid City Council decided at the early of the century to undertake a comprehensive reform to the entire perimeter ring road, not just the south area, but especially in that area because it was very degraded. And the main targets was the improvement of the M30 functionality, reducing traffic, making safer, more comfortable, reducing traffic inside the ring itself, eliminating also the barrier because those roads, all roads creating a barrier, making not too accessible one side to the other, and also to improve the environmental condition of that area. You can see the alignment and plan, and some key figures is nowadays probably the longest urban tunnel in Europe regarding roads, equivalent to an underground traffic lane of almost 100 kilometers with more than 200 emergency exits, 1.5 million of daily commutes. So what means nearly 500,000 vehicles per year with a lower ratio of fatal accidents compared with the usage of the normal state roads, which is very significant. So it's safer go surrounding that instead of outside. And because of the efficiency of that, the saving in time, and that means a lot of millions of fuel per year of saving. And also the significant reduction in terms of contamination. This infrastructure is managed by a mixed public-private partnership where 80% of the shares are owned by the Madrid City Council and the rest 20% by a private company, which is called MSM. The main constraints of this project was the planning, design, tendering, and construction to be completed in an amazing short time, only 4 years, trying to be safe and with few references before, because never that was done. However, the success of the metro enlargement recent was completed at that age in a huge enlargement of the Madrid metro with more than 150 kilometers in a very short time. Also, that create the idea that could be feasible. The challenge was then try to do it quickly, safely, and cost effectively, and considering the advantage of a global benefits in the long term. In this map, you can see very quickly the areas and the different activities where at the south, especially the blue and the red dots and the green especially shows the area where tunneling was more active. This is the time frame for the completion of this specific part of section of the whole refurbishment of the whole ring, which is concentrated at the south, which is called the southern bypass, which was completed in this time, 4 years only. And the cross section is a bit different because there are twin tunnels, is a bit different that Randy has explained us, with a more compact approach, as Jenny has said, also because there are twin tunnels that allows to create 3 lanes, 3.5 meters with the shoulders, an emergency vehicles lane underneath the slab. The lining is 60 centimeters and the ventilation is pure transverse. So that means that the diameter required was outer 15.2 meters. Is obviously significantly smaller than the bertha that Randy has explained. But we have to consider that we are talking about nearly 7 years before. Also, this project was completed with the galleries according with the regulation in terms of safety and any other big underground infrastructures like the ventilation shaft for deal with the air. The alignment is similar to the Alaskan, it's a bit longer with a cover of about 60 meters, 70 to the axis of the tunnel and cross to the tertiary deposit quaternary on top. For the completion of this project, 2 TBMs were manufactured. At those days was record in the world with more than 15 meters diameter, and it was manufactured in very short time, one by Mitsubishi and this one by Heranet. And just an idea how quickly this type of actions can be performed, just to say that can be completed nearly almost 800 meters per month. So that means that it would be possible to complete 4.2 kilometers in just 7 months. Another question to underline is for these pure mine tunnels, it is necessary to prepare launching shafts for the assembling of the TBM in the entrance and in the exits. You can see here how this, with this massive diameter, is like a mobile industry moving up to between 30 to 40 meters per day. Another issue to consider in any urban project is how to deal with the potential affection to the existing infrastructures, buildings, and any other structures. And in this example, you can see how this is possible to analyze with many instruments and tools that are in our hands now. And in this case, for example, being so narrow, the space between the twin tunnels and this building to be protected, it was analyzed slab with grouting to protect it. Just very quickly to comment this technique that has been very useful in Madrid because of the nature of the soils being over stressed, like in London, for example. This is not feasible in everywhere, but by using compensation grouting that was tested in Madrid also with a very good results, could be feasible to act concurrently to control the subsidence created by these tunnels and to mitigate the risks in the surrounding structures. Any other issue to consider in any urban tunnel is the control in terms of to install devices and references for monitoring and to check in a continuous process how our predictions are compared to the reality. There is another part of this project, not just underground tunnel, but with the cut and cover section, which are more dramatic in terms of the impact during that time. But it was considered that it was worthy by the decision to concentrate in the shortest time as possible, all the work inside at the same time in order to complete and put on service in the minimum time as possible. This is some example how any other innovative solutions were performed. For example, in this case, to deal with an existing very old tunnel, just using with jacks, micropiles and treatment to create this current situation, which is how it appears nowadays. So at the end of the 2007, the infrastructure was completed and put on service. But what I'd like to remark also is because of any other issue that was in mind in the owner is how to improve from the environmental and sustainable point of view the condition of those margins, and put in March the second half. So totally, we're talking about 8 years roughly, a big project to improve the conditions of this once the tunnels were underneath covered. And this is the aspect that it has nowadays. So this project has been recognized in terms of the benefits, the reduction of the contamination, to create nice landscape, which are converting one of the most interesting touristic areas to visit. And the future, just to summarize, is something similar in the north, is to cover the very old railway, which is the second in importance in Madrid. So the idea is to cover not exactly underground because are upgrade, but to create another underground space, but on top for environmental benefits and uses for the people. So the few lesson learned is the tunnel in all the resources and experience make it possible to upgrade all the urban roads where they become inefficient. Large scale construction can be carried out in a relatively short period of time that depends on the conditions and on many other issues. This type of finance, public-private partnership, could be maybe the only way in Europe, or at least as far as we know, that to make this feasible in terms of economics and finance. Well, the use of the smart use of undergrounds, as Jenny said at the beginning, and the overall cost of all these structures should be analyzed, consider all the benefits, not just for the direct, but also in a global manner. I like to, it's very difficult to me to summarize all the people that was involved in this, but just to mention that many other, and this was like a miracle because all the people was perfectly coordinated and motivated, and it was feasible to do this reality. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Pedro.
Thank you.
Now we will go to China with Dr. Zhu that will present UPS construction. Pedro, can you stop?
Yes,
sharing?
I'll try to. So sorry. Yeah. No.
Nearly.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
So Dr. Zhu, the floor is yours.
Yes. Okay. I share my. It's okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to share my experience. Hello, everyone. Good morning and very good afternoon and Good night. Today I want to share the construction of an integrated rail transit hub to promote urban sustainable development. With the increase of population and the enhancement of retention effect in big cities, we can make a full use of rail transit to connect underground space, reduce the interference to ground transportation, and strengthen the connection between regions in the process of urban renewal. Relying on the construction of transportation hubs, the land surrounding urban rail transit should be developed as a whole, and the regional coordinated development mode of rail city should be established to drive the sustainable economic development of the whole district and improve the image of urban regions. Here, I want to talk about the full part, and one is about the whole project. Shenzhen Chegongmiao Integrated Traffic Hub project is a beneficial attempt and a successful example of the construction of urban sustainable development. Has a very good reference for future similar projects. Here is the whole picture for this project, and very complex. The overall planning of Shenzhen, the functional cluster structure with the Shenzhen seas as the center, the three radial development axes to the west, middle, and the east as a basic skeleton, and the three-level circles for gradient development. Here we give the whole plan of Shenzhen. Here is our project location. We can see the Chegongmiao is on the west side of the intersection point of urban development zone and the central comprehensive function axis in Shenzhen seas. Here is a detailed information about this area, Shenzhen Chegongmiao area. It's located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Shennan Avenue and Xiangmihu Road. Here, two big avenues. The width of Shennan Avenue is 80 meters. It's not easy to connect to the plots on both sides. The traffic function of Xiangmihu Road was mixed. And the traffic volume of urban trunk roads in area was large. Here the figures in the map. Divided by urban trunk roads, and the connection was not easy. Here, the turn left function is mixed. Second part, we analyze the demand for this area development. After detailed analysis, we think we must resolve four aspects for this area. One is transportation, must be convenient, and second is transfer, must be convenient for the passengers. The third one is about the function to integration. And the last one is for the environment, must be comfortable. Here, we analyze the three-dimensional transport network is established by connecting and opening passages of all directions. The left one is missed some function for the roads, and the right one we give a good solution for every part. General idea 2 is about the project's aims. We want to achieve the transfer organization with reasonable layout and a smooth streamline. Here we divided two different layers. The pipeline transfer organization is adopted. And the second one is ensure the convenience of transfer for major passenger flow. This figure we give the route for passenger to transfer from different part to another part. And the general idea 3 is taking advantage of the construction opportunity of subway node stations. The underground public functional space should be developed, and the land use functions should be combined, and the land three-dimension development should be advocated. Here we made a detailed analysis for this land. And the general idea 4 is about the subway and bus and walking for passengers to connect together. Here is the figures about the real transit passenger flow of Chegongmiao Harbor. And the co-development goals of Chegongmiao Junction Station and its surrounding area are mainly reflected in the following aspects. One is contribute to the public, and the second one is regional value, and the third one is urban development. And part 3, the key points of the project. Here is research on metro network. Construction plan phase 3 includes metro line 7, 9, and 11, 3 lines here. And the Chegongmiao should be more closer connect with the surrounding intersections through the construction of rail transit. And here we want to make the transfer station into one station for 4 lines. And before we research, they cite 2 transfer stations in Zhuzilin and Chegongmiao. But after we research, we set 1 transfer station combined. For 4 lines, station is set in Chegongmiao and realize the convenient exchange of passenger flow in all directions and reaches all districts of the city through 1 transfer. Here, the picture shows all direction, all lines in 1 station to transfer. And the second part is about research on road traffic system. For Chegongmiao area, before we construct the metro system, the road traffic is mixed. And we want to improve the all direction traffic in this area. Here, and the transformation goals of Xiangmihu interchange is to improve the stream function, and the Chegongmiao interchange to achieve faster connection. Here, the picture in the left is to show before we to change the function to turn left, it must take a long distance to turn left here. And this picture shows we demolished some part for this area and build a new part for this interchange. And also we must consider the walking to form a clear and convenient ground traffic flow system and the internal traffic system. In the picture, we can show for the people, they can go another side through our new part. Here is show the old one and the new one we change, especially in the left part. We change Chegongmiao area. And the third one is about the intensive use of space. It has 5 floors underground and 52 floors above the ground, with a floor area of 150,000 square meters. The second floor underground is a part of the station hall, which can be directly arrived at from the building. Underground 3 to 5 floors for parking garage. And with the planning and the reconstruction of the Westland, stressing the connected underground space. In the in this picture, these two pictures, we can show the different functions for this area, for commercial and for the museum and for education, schools, and for residents, different function, different part. The space under the bridge is developed, and the commercial space of the station is integrated, which is connected with the surrounding plots through the underground street passage. Here we make a full use the space under the bridge. And it's connected with surrounding buildings also. And underground pedestrian passages extending in all directions are formed. After we finish this project, the people in this area, they can go through from one side to another side, all the directions they can walk, they can reach different parts. And for the last part is the benefits and achievement for this project. Number one is about the benefit of a passenger flow. After the completion of Chegongmiao Hub in 2019, the daily passenger flow in and out of the station reached 120 27,300% times, making it the third largest rail transit station in Shenzhen. The figure in the tables shows the third one in Shenzhen of this station. The yellow part. And the second is about economic benefit. Because we make a full use of the space for the land released by road, reconstruction was used to build a complex with an area of about 150,000 square meters. Integrating business, office, hotel, rail transit, and parking, which created an economic value of about RMB 15 billion and maximized the economic benefits of this project. Yeah. And the third part is about environmental benefit. Also, we consider the environment of this area. This project is designed for intensive development. The existing cooling tower of Line 1 are integrated on the skirt building of the superstructure and reducing the occupation of the ground green space and the impact on the pedestrian environment. This is a significant environmental benefit. And the social benefit. With the opening of the project, the traffic in this area has been greatly improved. For the older city, we think with the new function of this part. The reconstruction in Tairan area for this project on the south side consists of 760,000 square meters of construction works, including 50,000 square meters of underground space. Actually, after we finish this project, we conclude, we think this experience we can use in many parts, include Shenzhen. The other area include 3 or 4 line hubs. And we think if we build the public traffic with this mode, the life in the city, the life of the people in the city will better and better. Reference and significant. With the population growth and the growing cluster effect of big cities, we may make a full use of rail transit, connect underground space, reduce the interference to ground traffic, and strengthen the connection between areas in the process of urban renewal. This mode is a useful attempt and a successful example of urban area construction. It has a good reference significance for similar projects around the world. And thank you. Thank you for your attention. That's all. Yes.
Dr. Zhu.
Yeah.
So now we will go to metro in South America with a presentation by Professor Celestino ITA past president, who will share interesting presentation on the fact that the development of a metro system is good for the health of the population of the cities. Please, Tarcisio. Tarcisio? We don't hear you. Hello? You are not muted, but we don't hear you. And we don't see you. Now we see you, but...
Can you hear me now, Olivier?
Yes, I hear you now, yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad to have the chance of sharing with you this experience about the benefits of a metro system on the population health in São Paulo. An outline of my presentation, I will bring some quantitative assessment of air pollution decrease due to metro network in São Paulo, the beneficial consequences in terms of health and numbers about lives saved. And finally, some quantitative comparison of underground and elevated solutions for metro. And I'm glad that I was able to put together some numbers for this presentation, which address exactly goal number 3, as Olivier said in the introduction, United Nations goal number 3 on sustainable development for better health and life for all ages. I really encourage everyone who works for underground infrastructure to try to put together these numbers so that we can tell others about our lessons learned. The metropolitan area of São Paulo has around 18 million people. The city of São Paulo has 12.3 million people and 8.2 million vehicles, which gives us, I would say, an uncomfortable number of 1.5 inhabitants per vehicle. And that's just an indication of how poor our public transportation system is, that actually people to move to work, go back and forth from home to work, have to rely on individual cars, which is not good. The metro construction started about 40 years ago, but the metro company in São Paulo was able to construct a network of only about 100 kilometers since 1976, which is very limited for a city of this size. But nevertheless, it has already brought significant contribution with respect to health and to saving lives. And as I usually say, many people who live in this city are alive today because we have a metro. Were it not for the metro, some people would have died. Maybe I would not be here, I don't know, if it were not for the metro contribution. This is what our city looks like every evening. It's not different from all the mega cities, some of the mega cities around the world. A lot of demand for cars, and this is the traffic jam which we see almost every evening in São Paulo. There has been some research, and I called the attention to this thesis by Silva, 2012, which brought us very interesting data on the contribution of the São Paulo Metro for decreasing air pollution and for contributing for the health of people. I call the attention of this table from that thesis, which shows the average PM10, which is the contents of particulate matter smaller than 10 microns, which is very harmful for breathing. And the concentration in the air on a regular day in Sao Paulo is, I would say, around 41 micrograms per cubic meter. Let's take a rough number of about 50 micrograms per cubic meter. And in this research, they were able to take the influence of the metro by just measuring this number with very accurate methods, which I will not go through in my presentation, on the day in which the metro was on strike. So instead of people moving by metro, people would have to move by cars and so on. So the concentration of PM10 in the atmosphere increased to 101. And in this research, they were very careful enough to take similar days, that this day when there was the strike, the comparison was with another day of similar temperature, similar relative humidity, similar wind speed, and so on. We see here an example of another day when there was a strike and they were not able to find such a representative similar day. But in this case, they were able to find a similar day, and we see that there is a drastic decrease because of the metro of this number, a drastic decrease of this number from 100 to about 40. So let's see what the consequences of this, the reduction of this number are with respect to the health of people. Professor Saldiva from the School of Public Health of the university where I am, University of São Paulo, has worked a lot on the effects of air pollution on mortality and morbidity in the city of São Paulo. And he has come up with this graph which shows the relative risk of death versus the concentration of PM10 in the atmosphere. And it's very clear that the risk of death increases significantly with the concentration of particulate matter in the atmosphere. And this is quantified with numbers, as we see, by Professor Saldiva. And we also have news, which are usually in the media. Here I'm taking this news from the newspaper Folha de São Paulo, which shows that the pollution due to cars is responsible for a fourfold increase in the risk of death in the city of São Paulo. Fourfold increase of chance of the risk of death due to respiratory problems due to car pollution. So as long as we are able to decrease anything with respect to car pollution, we are contributing a lot to goal number 3 of the United Nations. So from Professor Saldiva's numbers, we see that the reduction in PM10 is roughly from 100 to 50. I'm being conservative here. It's from more than 100 to less than 50, but I want to be conservative. So the relative risk of death is reduced by 5% by the limited network which the São Paulo Metro has nowadays. But nevertheless, even if it's limited, it's already good enough to reduce the risk of death by 5%. The daily deaths saved are 5% out of 20 people who died due to respiratory problems due to air pollution. That's about 1 life every day, which means about 3,500 lives per decade, which is the whole population of a small town. The metro has been around for about 4 decades. So we see how many thousands of people are alive today because of the metro. I don't bring information here due to losses due to morbidity, but Professor Saldiva also works on that. So as a general statement, we could say that were it not for the metro, many people would have died along these last decades in São Paulo. As I said, some people are here because of the metro system. I don't know if I am here because of that, but some people would have died. So these are real numbers which show very clearly what underground transportation infrastructure can do for United Nations goal number 3. Quantitative benefits of São Paulo Metro, which have been summarized in their yearly report, show that there is the metro system nowadays saves more than 400 million liters of fuel consumption, and all the consequences with respect to greenhouse gases emission. It's not only the money saved, but a lot of good consequences. 1 billion man-hour of shorter trips, which means a lot for social benefit, and around $700 million in savings in vehicle operational costs. That's quite significant when we think of social and economic benefits of even such a limited metro system. When we think about metro, we could say, okay, so any kind of rail transportation system can bring that benefits, and I would say not exactly, not necessarily. But underground infrastructure is much more effective with respect to that. So if we think of elevated rail infrastructure, is it good enough? I would say with respect to air pollution decreasing, yes, it is. With respect to energy savings, not as much, as I'm going also to show with an example. With respect to time reduction of the trips, it's not as effective yet. And I'm again going to show what those benefits are of underground infrastructure with respect to elevated rail infrastructure with a real example. I'm going to take the link, the metro link to the Congonhas Airport. Congonhas Airport was constructed in the 1940s. It was far away from downtown in those old days. And nowadays it's completely surrounded by the city. As you can see here, this aircraft is just landing. About 20 million passengers go through this airport every year, this airport in the middle of the city. And there is no access by rail. Almost all passengers go there by cars, taxis, taxi cabs, and so on, but no rail, no mass transit system to this airport. So we could say that rail connection could save about more than 30,000 trips per day by car. Because of that, in 2008, the São Paulo Metro Company announced the link between the São Judas station. São Judas is a metro station along the north-south line of the São Paulo Metro. It was actually the very first line constructed in the mid-70s, and which is at a distance of about 2,000 meters from the airport terminal. So in 2008, the São Paulo Metro Company announced the construction of an elevated link between São Judas station and the airport. And we can see here that this elevated link has a very long path because it just goes along the avenues. It doesn't go straight as an underground infrastructure could go. Here we see very clearly this is what was proposed in green color, what was proposed by the Metro Company in 2008, this elevated link along the avenues with a length of 3.7 kilometers, whereas an underground link, which I defended at that time, would have the length of only 2.2 kilometers. So what was proposed by the São Paulo Metro Company was actually 68% longer than an underground alternative. And let's see what, with numbers again, what the consequences of this are. The length, 3.7 kilometers elevated, 2.2 kilometers underground, so 1.5 kilometers with the elevated solution. This link was predicted to serve 16,000 passengers per day with a headway of 2 minutes between trains. So the total number of daily trips would be 1,140. Additional travel distance, elevated minus underground, would be 1,710 kilometers per day, or 624,000 kilometers per year. And let's think about what the consequences of this additional travel distance are. It means more than 15 turns around the world. Can we think of how much it costs to put a train going 15 times around the world every year in terms of energy, operational costs, additional carbon footprints, rolling stock, and so on? Not to talk about the passengers, which would spend 400,000 man-hour in addition to the additional distance, and not to talk about noise and visual impact of the elevated alternative with respect to the underground alternative. So, as conclusions of my presentation, I would say, even though São Paulo metro network is still very limited, only about 100 kilometers, nevertheless, it's very effective with respect to the benefits reached related to health and even lives of people. The concentration of particulate matter, PM10, is reduced about 50%, and that's a conservative number. And as a consequence of that, thousands of lives have been saved every decade. But it's not only metro, where the highest benefit comes from underground alternative for metro, which we have shown that quantitatively are much more effective in terms of the results than the elevated alternatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tarcísio, for this very interesting presentation. You have to stop sharing.
Yeah.
The next presentation will be about the smart tunnel in Kuala Lumpur. This is a pre-recorded presentation that I will launch. And of course, Mr. Sharia is also with us for the panel discussion afterwards.
And a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Orang yang language. Selamat petang, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. I'm honored to be invited in this forum and share our experience in managing one of our unique tunnel in the world, which is smart tunnel. This unique structure is actually located in our Kuala Lumpur city center. And as for today, my presentation will be talking about how we are harmonizing the function of flood and also traffic control. Before we go beyond, I think it's best for us to know about our smart tunnel itself. So, as a country which receives around 3,000 millimeters of rain each year, flood is one of the main issues that Kuala Lumpur needs to face every time, every year. The frequency of the flood events increasing each year. And besides that, Kuala Lumpur also getting busier. Each year is good. It is actually good for prosperity. But Kuala Lumpur is getting more and more congested. Something needs to be done to ease the situation. initially, the idea of having smart tunnel is actually to build a stormwater tunnel, which to divert water from upstream and bypass Kuala Lumpur. However, our previous Prime Minister suggested that we have to include more purposes to the tunnel to bring more value to the tunnel itself. So that's when we have road tunnel included. So as you can see here, basically stormwater management, that is the SMART is actually short for stormwater management and road tunnel. And as we all know, this tunnel is actually serving two purposes. One is actually to mitigate the flood and also to relieve traffic congestion. And since we have the dual purpose of function, yeah. So the construction of SMART involved two different ministry, which is Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, and also Ministry of Works. And both ministries are actually working hand in hand via two departments and agency, which is Department of Irrigation and Drainage, and also Malaysian Highway Authority. So by having this, by completion of the tunnel, and on the 30th of June 2007, to serve this dual function, so we have two offices, which is Smart Control Center, which is one of the offices under Department of Irrigation and Drainage, and also Motorway Control Center, which is a private entity, which controls the traffic for the road tunnel. So I just want to share with you some of the structures and machines that have been used for the construction of this tunnel. So this is one of two tunnel boring machines that have been used. So if you can see in the slides, the tunnel diameter is actually 12.8. So we can all know that the tunnel diameter is actually 12 meters, and it is actually the largest in Southeast Asia and second largest in Asia. So this is the road tunnel cross section, whereby you can see the upper deck and lower deck, and also the drainage component down there. So this cross section, it is actually, the length for it is 3 kilometers. And I just want to share with you a glimpse of a tunnel segment and also proof grouting processes that have been done during construction period. As I mentioned just now, there are two offices that maintaining the operation of Smart Tunnel. So this is actually want to show to you that the function of the two offices, which is the Smart Control Center, is looking into managing the flood, and also Motorway Control Center managing the traffic control. So we are talking about sustainability. So the main ingredient in sustainability is actually the effectiveness. I will try to share with you how we are doing it. So we are having actually two operational modes. So by having a 70 cubic of water from Sungai Ampang and also upstream of Sungai Klang, it is actually, if it is below 70 cubic, we are not operating any modes, activating any modes at that time. So the tunnel is not, we are not operating the tunnel, and also the traffic and road tunnel operates just as usual. But when it comes to the water flow, more than 70 cubic. So it brings a risk to Kuala Lumpur. And with that 70 cubic, it will create higher chances of flood. So that time, we will activate the mode 2, and this water will be flow to our detention and attenuation pond, and the water also will flow through our tunnel. But yet and still, by having the gates between end to end of the traffic and road tunnel, the traffic still can operate as usual. So when it reach more than 150 cubic, then the exercise of evacuating the road tunnel need to be done. But however, at that moment of time, the road tunnel is not being used to flow the flood. Okay, and finally, when it comes to prolong of 150 cubic, so we have to utilize and maximize the whole structure to hold the water. So that's where we have to open the gates of road tunnel and allow the water to flow through the road tunnel. So to make it easier and make it easier for us to understand more from the operation of these modes, I also prepared some videos to show how the operation, the modes is being operated. So let's have a view of this, please. So this is for the first mode, and then the mode 2. Yeah, mode 2 is actually, we are actually utilizing it for reducing the flood risk for Kuala Lumpur. So for mode 3, when we start evacuating the tunnel, the road tunnel. And finally, mode 4. So now we are going to talk about the effectiveness of the implementation of all of these modes. So looking at the operation mode, I just want to share with you the trend. So if you can see in the slides, the rainfall trend in Kuala Lumpur, since we are receiving 3,000 millimeters per year. So if you can see the trend there, so it is look alike with our monthly operation mode. So we can understand that basically when most of our modes need to be operated. So we try all our best to optimize the traffic usage in the road tunnel. So basically, by having this type of operation, we can see that the road tunnel is actually being used only several times within these 14 years. So basically, if you look into this slide, it shows that from 503 modes that we already activated, only 114 for mode 3 and mode 4. This is actually when the road tunnel is actually needs to be evacuated. Okay, so if we go to the next slides, we can see that it is actually contribute to 20.67% from the whole event. However, if we consider within the 14 years of operation, it is actually contribute to only 2%. So it shows that the tunnel closure only being used within a very minimal times. So the tunnel operation efficiency at this time, until today, it is actually 98.0%. So it shows that by having this, we still can control the flood and we still can ease the traffic congestion at the same time. So as a conclusion, SMART has been operating flawlessly at its full function, but also it is by its design. So these roles are made possible through a comprehensive standard operating procedure and also a successful collaboration for operation between government agency, which is us in Stormwater Control Center, SCC, and also Motorway Control Center, which is run by a private entity. And within these 14 years of operation, I believe that SMART is a testimony that an extraordinary engineering could be made possible. We've done it. How about you? So with that conclusion, I believe I have to end my presentation. But before that, this is actually addresses to our social media. So feel free to visit us. And if you have some other question, you can also send it to us using the information given in the slides. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shari, for this very interesting presentation. And at the end, that we see that economically in 14 years of operation, the toll collect is sometimes like 4 times the cost of construction of a tunnel. So it's also, of course, there are operation costs and everything, but it's also has been paid back already.
Everything is already being counted. Even our ROIs.
Thank you all for this interesting presentation. I have a very, let's say, interesting question that is for everybody, and which is probably the main goal and the way to go forward, is how, with all the benefits that we have seen from the underground transport, underground infrastructure, how we can convince the governments to better use and to go further to underground, specifically, let's say it was said in the global south, because of course, as we've just seen the example of SMART, it can be paid back, and it's, as I said, a tunnel is not a cost, it's an investment, but it's sometimes difficult to convince government to do so. And I'm quite sure that, Mr. Shari, you can go on that, because at the beginning, a SMART tunnel is initially a tunnel for prevent flooding in Kuala Lumpur, and the fact that it has been joined with a road tunnel, with a tall road tunnel, that has probably also helped to build it at that time, because you are the first to have built such a important flood diversion tunnel.
Yes, I agree with that. And also, I also would like to answer one question from Mr. Adwait Limai. Correct me if I'm wrong in pronouncing it. Highlights the point to convince the government bodies. So I believe most of our decision makers always look into dollar and cents. In this case, the revenue that can be generated from the project. So it is basically what I can suggest, and basically from our experience, we are actually doing some economical studies, whereby and it is proven so. Just want to announce in this forum, our ROI is already reaching more than double in terms of a monetary impact, and then already double within more than double actually within 14 years. So I believe that this is something that we can share with all, and maybe this is one of the example that the impossible is possible.
Yes, for sure. And Mr. Limai also asked us a question that I partly answered concerning EV vehicles, but saying that there are more and more floods all over the year, and earthquakes. I know Randy, because there was also a question from Arad Wagner, that of course earthquake was one of the point that makes the decision to go to a tunnel rather than to replace the viaduct by another viaduct. It is something interesting, because I would say that with climate change, with all we see, we have more good answers to tell the decision makers that they better build a tunnel and build an underground infrastructure than an overground infrastructure. Randy, you want to add something on this?
Absolutely. It was remarkable in Seattle that the public voted for the no build option in the evidence of the destruction that Nisqually created to the viaduct. I think simulation, visualization is a very, very powerful tool to be able to communicate to the public who are not engineers, they're not scientists, but they will react emotionally to what they see, so long as they believe that what they see is truthful, is real. And they were not there to experience the Loma Prieta collapse of the Cypress Freeway. I was, I'm a believer, but in the case of WashDOT, they created a simulation of what a more significant earthquake would do to the Alaskan Way Viaduct. And it's available on the web. You can review it. It's some people felt it was sensational, but a number of earthquake engineers have said, no, it's quite realistic. This is in your future. And I think that when we talk about cost benefit analysis of various projects, to be able to portray what the consequence is if nothing is done has to be part of the equation. It's not just solving a flooding problem. Well, in Kuala Lumpur, because we were involved from the get-go there with the engineering and supporting Gamuda, the contractor, there the government said that it wasn't cost effective to mitigate the flooding with just a flood control tunnel. It took a private concern to say, if we occupy the middle third of your tunnel and you allow us to toll vehicles, we will build that segment at our cost. Would that then make your project viable? Double thumbs up. That's what did it. That's what made it go. So it's a different variation of public-private partnership, a little bit of innovation, a lot of bit of conviction by, in this case, Gamuda, to have the confidence that they can do this. The challenge is, how do we share these experiences that occur in select locations, whether it's Madrid or Sao Paulo or Seattle or KL, and communicate it to other areas and other cities to prove what can be done, but also to demonstrate what the consequences will be if the no build option is preferred. Can we afford to do nothing? In certain instances, we cannot.
Yeah, and to come back on this, the no build option is no longer an option, and we see, for instance, in Thailand, where they have taken a lot of time to decide to build flood preventing tunnels in Bangkok, but after the big flooding in 2011, where they had to stop the industry for 6 months. So nowadays with the pandemic, we know that everything is possible, but at that time it was a catastrophe for the whole economy. And as I said, when you make investment in order to protect your economy, it's anyhow, when you don't protect your economy, you're losing money. So you need to make investment, even though you cannot. It's difficult. In Kuala Lumpur, the project was such that it was feasible and economical benefits, but it's not always the case everywhere. But protecting against flooding is absolutely necessary to protect the economy, and that was the original decision of Kuala Lumpur. Of course, one of the issue that is being asked, but we will not answer to this, is the legal issues concerning the underground ownership, because that's something which is very difficult, and inside ITA it's also very difficult to make something, because it's very depending on the countries and so on. And of course it has consequences on the way you can build and not build. Anyone want to add something on this issue?
Yeah, well, just to say that in Spain, for instance, the owners are the property is what we call horizontal. So it's just the surface upwards, but not downwards instead of special cases. in any other countries where we know that this doesn't work. So that I think is very, very important, not just to planning or to construct, but even during the construction, temporary works, for example, invading what we call the right of way. Everyone which is involved in that knows how big is the difference depending on the local legal issues. Yeah, that's right.
One question which is coming more and more is, of course, we always say that building underground has a lot of benefit for the environment, for the sustainable development. But in the other hand, sometimes we are considered during the construction phase as not being the most environmental friendly things. Notably, one of the main issues nowadays is what we do with muck or with earth getting out of a tunnel. The other issue is probably concerning transport, logistics, notably in big cities. Any comments? That we know that is something we need to make progress, and we need to be innovative as well. Jenny?
Yes. I think this is a very important issue. Yeah, especially for metro construction in downtown, and sometimes the ground is soft. So we usually use PP or slurry TPM to excavate the ground, so the spoil is wet and sometimes liquid, and it's very difficult to treat this. But now, we have some technologies, especially in Shenzhen city, because they have more than 100 TPM, sheet TPM, working at the same time in the city. So around 6 million cubic meters spoil each year. So they produce, there's innovative technology and also equipment. So those spoil can be separated into different kinds, aggregates, sand, clay, and water. And this material can be used for art purpose. And I think this is quite good. I think this is what we need to do. Otherwise, it's very risky and challenging how to deal with this wet and sometimes liquid spoil. And you need a very large landfill, for this. And it's not stable. It's very risky to the environment. So I think not only our tunneling provides sustainable for the cities, but our construction method should be environmentally friendly as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Any other comments? Yes, Randy.
Yeah, someone had asked a question. What do you do with the excavated materials? And we really haven't. We've talked about flooding, but flooding is a subset of climate change, and we know that we're seeing climate change effects. I witnessed Superstorm Sandy in New York. We were boring a tunnel under New York Harbor for water supply that was flooded because the storm surge exceeded what we thought was more than acceptable flood level, well in excess of the 100-year flood, in excess of the 200-year flood. And the cap out was about 6 inches larger than the 300-year flood. And we had the good idea, but didn't get it right. But the consequences were the Midtown Tunnel was flooded. A number of major infrastructure elements in connecting Manhattan to New Jersey were damaged. And what you say is we can't afford to ignore climate change because our economic engine will seize if something like this hits. In California, there's another phenomenon related to climate change, and that is that because of the reduction in rainfall, the utilization of aquifer pumping for the source of water is having a consequence in the central area of California. The ground surface has dropped, I believe, upwards of 6 meters in some areas. And what had been riparian habitat environmental concerns are now underwater. Well, they're looking at building 1 or 2 tunnels that would be on the order of 12 to 13 to perhaps 14 meters in diameter and perhaps 30 kilometers in length from Northern California down to an area in Central California to try to enhance the transport of water from other sections to mitigate the need to pump from the aquifers, to mitigate the environmental harm that overpumping of the aquifers is causing, and at the same time, use the spoils from that tunnel construction to reestablish the riparian habitats that have been submerged. We've had to make presentations in Sacramento to demonstrate that with certain levels of care, you can work these tunneling machines and have non-harmful muck come from the excavation and be able to be reused and redistributed to reestablish very sensitive environmental habitats. So if we just think about a system and try to connect the dots, where's the urgency? What's the solution? What other consequential benefits can the solution to solve the major emergency provide? When you find that you can connect enough dots, suddenly everybody says, that's the perfect solution. It happened in Kuala Lumpur. Hopefully it's going to happen in Central California, where climate change is going to be a mandate to deal with. The question is, what innovative solutions can we in our underground industry come up with to help solve the problem underground? And I think the solutions are there. They just need a little bit of convincing.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Yeah. And Tarcisio, I really like your presentation today. Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, even though, yeah, we have discussed many times, and our the contribution of tunnel industry to sustainable development. But I think the numbers you showed today, I think it's very convincing. Yeah, I think we may need to work a little bit more on this direction, and to prove with numbers, yeah, the sustainability of this industry, especially metro. Yeah, I agree with you. So that's why in China, yeah, many cities are now building metro system. Yeah, sometimes for cities they build more than several hundred kilometers at the same time. Yeah, so so I think that's the way. Yeah, for better environments and for more efficient transport solutions. Yeah, I really like your presentation today.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much. But I would actually suggest everybody to look around of projects which we are involved and to look around for the benefits. And sometimes the numbers are just popping up. We just have to put them together. I think I have been inspired since a long time ago by ITA. There was a working group working on why go underground. I think that was the name, and putting together publications and presentations on the benefits of going underground. And it's very clear to us, as I said, not only should we design, but we should look around and see the advantages and put together those numbers that they will be useful for others later on to learn our lessons and to convince decision makers about the advantages of underground infrastructure.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think that this type also of workshop, and even though we are all looking forward to see each other, to meet each other in our congresses, the advantage of this type of meeting is maybe we can reach people that are usually not going to our conferences, and that through that could be convinced and get some tips to convince their decision makers in their own country. And of course, ITA is there to help them to share with everybody everywhere in the world tips, benefits, figures, as Tarcisio says, and also here to share all the innovation that are needed. And as Randy said, sometimes the solution might exist. The solution is there for having solutions against climate change, but we just need to be convincing and to get the right people at the right moment, as it has been done, for example, in Kuala Lumpur. Okay, I think we come to the end to this workshop. So Jenny, do you want to say some final words?
Yes, I would like to thank everybody. Yeah, to thank speakers and all our participants. Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very important forum. I think we will work on this further. I hope we can have more these kinds of forum in the future, because the sustainable development is most important for all of us. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And the session will be available on the ITA YouTube channel, and we hope to see you each other during a next conference. Have a good day. Thank you to all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.